every door is closing. And this time, nobody inside the palace is rushing to open a new one. The month of March 2026 delivered two verdicts in quick succession, and together they answered a question that royal commentators had been circling for 6 years. Had Harry and Meghan's post-royal strategy actually worked? On March 17th, Variety published a bombshell exposé by journalist Matt Donnelly, drawing on 6 well-placed sources inside Netflix, each delivering the same diagnosis. The mood in the building is, "We're done," one Netflix insider told the magazine. 3 separate sources confirmed that Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos was fed up with the couple entirely. 9 days later, on March 26th, royal biographer Tom Bower published Betrayal, Power, Deceit, and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family, detailing how the Prince and Princess of Wales viewed Meghan not as a wayward in-law, but as an active threat to the monarchy itself. 2 institutions, Hollywood and the palace, reached the same conclusion in the same fortnight. The game was over. To understand how thoroughly this went wrong, you have to go back to the bet, and you have to understand how large it was. In September 2020, Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos signed Harry and Meghan to an exclusive multi-year deal. Publicly reported at $100 million, Variety's own sourcing would later peg the figure at roughly $60 million. The contract was the largest entertainment deal in royal history, by any measure. That same summer, the couple had separately signed with Spotify's Archewell audio division for a reported $20 million to produce podcasts. Between the 2 platforms, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had secured somewhere between $80 million and $120 million in committed deals before filming a single frame or recording a single episode. The strategy carried an elegant internal logic. Trade royal grievance for cultural capital, park it in California, and build an entertainment operation that didn't need Buckingham Palace's permission or its patronage. The Crown's money would be replaced by Silicon Valley's. The Crown's approval would be replaced by audience numbers. It was, on paper, a clean exit. The Spotify deal collapsed first, and it did so loudly. Under a 3-year contract, Archewell Audio was expected to produce a meaningful slate of audio content. What was actually delivered? 1 podcast series called Archetypes, 12 episodes featuring guests including Serena Williams, Mariah Carey, and Paris Hilton, plus 1 standalone holiday special. 13 episodes total across 3 years of a $20 million deal. In June 2023, Archewell Audio and Spotify announced they had mutually agreed to part ways, 2 weeks after Spotify cut 200 jobs in a broader, strategic realignment. The Wall Street Journal reported the couple may not have met the productivity thresholds required to receive their full payout. Spotify's head of podcast innovation and monetization, Bill Simmons, was considerably less diplomatic. On his own podcast, Simmons said simply, "The F King grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them." Brutal, public, and, in retrospect, a precise preview of what was coming from Netflix 2.5 years later. Nobody in the Sussexes' camp appeared to take it as a warning. The Netflix side had, to be fair, produced genuine results early on. In December 2022, the Harry and Meghan docuseries debuted to record-breaking numbers, 81.55 million hours viewed in the first 4 days of release, the highest documentary debut in Netflix history at that point. A month later, on January 10, 2023, Spare hit shelves. Ghost-written by J.R. Mooringer and published by Penguin Random House, it sold 1.43 million copies in its first 24 hours across the UK, US, and Canada, setting a Guinness World Record as the fastest-selling non-fiction book of all time. Both works drew their power from the same source, the royal family. The docuseries worked because it showed a duke and duchess at war with the House of Windsor. Spare worked because Harry named names. The physical altercation with William in the kitchen of Nottingham Cottage, the conversations about the skin color of an unborn Archie, the characterization of Camilla that left Charles reportedly outraged and distraught. The palace didn't issue a statement. It didn't need to. The problem with building a media empire on royal grievance is that the supply is finite. By 2024, there were no new revelations left to air. Every accusation had been made. Every private moment had been filmed, published, or recounted in sworn testimony. The docuseries had done its work. Spare had done its damage, and what remained was the question nobody at Archewell had publicly confronted. Without the crown as a foil, were Harry and Meghan actually interesting? Netflix had already started to sense the answer. Sources say the streamer felt blindsided as early as spring 2021, when Penguin Random House announced it was publishing Spare, news that landed during Netflix's rollout planning for Harry and Meghan. The tension between the publishing timeline and the streaming slate had been a friction point before a single episode aired. By the time the first look deal was renegotiated in August 2025, the scale of what had been produced was telling. From 5 years of exclusivity, Archewell had delivered the Harry and Meghan docuseries, a leadership documentary called Live to Lead, the Invictus Games film Heart of Invictus, a 5-part series about polo player Nacho Figueras, and With Love, Meghan. An animated children's series that had been announced with fanfare was quietly cut in 2022. The promised slate of scripted shows and feature films never arrived. At the 2024 Sundance Film Festival, Netflix had indicated it would prioritize acquisition spending for Archewell, but sales agents and filmmakers on the ground had no interest. 4 separate sources told Variety that nobody at Sundance wanted Archewell involvement. That isn't a detail you recover from easily in Hollywood. The lifestyle pivot was supposed to fix all of this. With Love, Meghan premiered on Netflix on March 4, 2025. In its debut week, the show ranked 10th on Netflix's global top 10, promising enough on the surface. The fuller picture was considerably less flattering. For the entire first half of 2025, With Love, Meghan ranked as the 389th most-watched program out of more than 7,000 titles on the platform, accumulating 5.3 million total views. Season 2 premiered on August 26, 2025, and failed to crack Netflix's top 10 most-watched shows during its entire 6-day qualifying window. From its August debut through December 2025, Season 2 logged 2 million views, a drop of over 500,000 from the already modest first series. Professional critics on Rotten Tomatoes awarded it 17%. By comparison, Netflix's Adolescence had amassed 145 million views in the same period. The second and third seasons of Squid Game combined for nearly 190 million. Netflix hasn't renewed With Love, Meghan for a third season. That silence was its own kind of statement. Alongside the show, Meghan had launched a lifestyle brand called As Ever, originally named American Riviera Orchard, before a trademark dispute forced the rebrand. The range launched in April 2025 in partnership with Netflix's Consumer Products division, timed precisely to coincide with Love, Meghan. Jams, teas, honey, baking mixes, candles, flower sprinkles, wine. The brand's ambition was clear. Meghan as a lifestyle authority in the tradition of Gwyneth Paltrow, credible entirely on her own terms. She had even hired Devin Pedswater, a consultant who had worked directly with Goop, to help shape the brand's independent identity. Meghan told interviewers that demand for early product drops had outpaced supply by extraordinary margins, that orders for jam had jumped from a few thousand jars to purchase orders of 1 million. On January 6, 2026, Reddit users found a glitch on the As Ever website. A technical workaround appeared to expose live back-end inventory figures. What those numbers showed? More than 220,000 jars of jam, 30,000 jars of honey, 90,000 candles, 80,000 tins of flower sprinkles, and roughly 70,000 bottles of wine. At retail prices, the total inventory implied by the glitch came to approximately $21.8 million, 16.1 million pounds of product sitting unsold. The glitch was fixed within hours, purchase limits were applied, and spokespeople for As Ever insisted the figures reflected a thriving business with international expansion in progress. But the Variety exposé corroborated the picture from the other side. Netflix was sitting on a surplus of As Ever products, including tea and baking mixes, totaling more than $10 million in value. So much so that the company started giving inventory to employees for free, putting the goods on card tables in various office buildings. One Netflix staffer walked out with 10 As Ever products at no cost. By early March 2026, Netflix had formally withdrawn its backing from the brand. An As Ever spokesperson described this as stepping into its next chapter independently. Nobody inside Netflix used that language. The Variety piece, published March 17th, assembled the grievances with forensic precision. Reporter Matt Donnelly's 6 sources cited poor communication repeatedly, what sources call poor communication in their dealings with the company. The couple's perceived pattern of selling repackaged versions of the same story about their exit from royal life had exhausted Netflix executives. Their bedside manner had ruffled feathers in meetings. The piece described Meghan as tending to talk over Harry or recast his contributions during virtual and in-person meetings, sometimes while he is mid-sentence. It noted an approach to feedback that included disappearing during Zoom calls as a signal of displeasure. 3 sources separately confirmed that Sarandos was fed up. 2 of those sources went further, claiming Sarandos had recently said he wouldn't take a call with Meghan without a lawyer present, a claim a Netflix spokesperson called absolutely inaccurate. Harry's legal team described the article as categorically false. Harry himself said it wasn't worth dignifying. Netflix's chief content officer, Bella Bajaria, addressed the coverage at the company's Next on Netflix event, urging the room to do a little fact-checking and stating that Netflix still has a relationship with them, with movies in development. She wasn't wrong on the technicalities. Film adaptations of Carly Fortune's novel Meet Me at the Lake and Jasmine Guillory's The Wedding Date remain nominally in development under the First Look arrangement. A Girl Scouts documentary, Cookie Queens, premiered at Sundance in early 2026 under the Archewell banner. The relationship had not formally terminated. A source who described the August 2025 First Look deal to Page 6 as not much and no risk for Netflix was being candid about what a First Look arrangement actually represents. Not a partnership, not an investment, but an option. A placeholder that costs the studio almost nothing and commits to almost as little. 9 days after Variety ran its piece, Bauer's Betrayal arrived. Excerpts had run in the Times the weekend of March 14th and 15th, triggering an immediate and forceful response from the Sussexes, who branded the book a deranged conspiracy and melodrama. The rage was notable in itself, not the measured denial of people confident in their position, but the furious pushback of people who recognized how accurately the story was being told. According to Bauer, the Prince and Princess of Wales had evidently seen Meghan as a threat rather than an ally, even before Megxit, not as an eccentric newcomer to manage, but as a structural risk to the institution that needed to be contained. Kensington Palace's stated position was the one it always uses. William and Kate would opt for the same policy and not respond to any claims surrounding Harry and Meghan. The palace had decided not to dignify the conversation. It had made that decision years earlier. The royal family's approach across 6 years of Sussex attacks has been, at its core, a study in institutional patience. The Oprah interview in March 2021 produced no formal palace rebuttal, beyond a single, carefully worded acknowledgement that recollections may vary. The Harry and Meghan docuseries was met with near total silence from every relevant royal office. Spare, which described a physical confrontation between brothers, aired private conversations about Archie's skin color, and characterized Camilla in terms that reportedly left Charles outraged and distraught, received no public counteroffensive whatsoever. Buckingham Palace didn't brief. It didn't threaten. It didn't respond in kind. Never complain, never explain had always been royal instinct, but deployed against the Sussexes, it became something more calculated, a strategic refusal to give Harry and Meghan the argument they needed. Every time the couple attacked the palace's silence made the attack look louder and lonelier. Every denial Harry issued kept the story alive at his own expense. The Crown waited, and the waiting worked. Harry had flagged where the solution lay, and precisely why it wasn't coming. "There is a lot of control and ability in my father's hands," he said. "Ultimately, this whole thing could be resolved through him." He had also been honest about the obstacle. "Some members of my family will never forgive me for writing a book. Of course, they will never forgive me for lots of things." These aren't the words of a man who believes reconciliation is close. A private meeting between Harry and Charles at Clarence House in September 2024, their first in 19 months, produced no public thaw, no statement, and no visible change in the dynamic. The door had been visited. It had not been opened. What those two conditions reveal, taken together, is a trap with no obvious exit. The palace door requires Charles to move, and Charles, whose wife was written about in Spare with sufficient specificity to leave him reportedly distraught, has given no indication of moving. The Hollywood door requires content that audiences choose to watch, and audiences, it turns out, chose to watch Harry and Meghan as combatants against the House of Windsor, not as lifestyle presenters demonstrating jam recipes. Both doors required the same capital: royal proximity, royal drama, royal conflict. And that capital was spent, in full, between March 2021 and January 2023. You can't spend the same pound twice. What remains in March 2026 is this. Harry's role as Chief Impact Officer at BetterUp, a coaching and mental health app, reportedly pays $1.2 million annually. The Montecito estate, purchased in 2020, retains its value. As Ever continues trading independently, without Netflix's promotional muscle behind it. Two film adaptations sit in first-look development limbo. The suggestion that Harry and Meghan are financially ruined misreads the situation. That has never been the story. The story is leverage. Leverage to negotiate with Hollywood from a position of strength. Leverage to return to royal life on their own terms. Leverage to demand relevance from an industry that has moved on. Tom Bauer, speaking directly after the Variety piece ran, summarized it without sentiment. The Sussexes are reaching the end of the road in Hollywood. Their behavior, lack of original talent, and suffocating self-importance has made it even more important for them to return to Britain in July, meet the king, and be revalidated as royals. He then added the part that mattered. That option, I believe, will be denied to them. They face an increasingly tough future. That's the price of betraying the royal family since Megxit. The royal correspondents and experts who contribute to Palace Confidential, including the Daily Mail's Richard Eden and Rebecca English, alongside broadcaster and You magazine editor Joe Elvin, have been tracking this trajectory for years. The view from those who have covered the royal family through decades of crises is consistent. The Sussexes aren't victims of external forces. They are victims of a strategy that consumed itself. The royal capital that made them worth $100 million to Netflix was the same capital they spent to make Spare sell 1.43 million copies. The Netflix audience that tuned in for 81.55 million hours of Harry and Meghan came for the family at war with itself. And when the war ended, on the Sussexes' terms, the audience left too. Every door is closing. Netflix closed in the language of first-look deals and unreturned calls. The Palace closed loudly in the pages of Spare and the Oprah living room, and has spent the years since simply maintaining the lock. Hollywood as an industry sent its message through Sundance sales agents who declined Archewell involvement and through WME team members, including Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel and Kardashian specialist Brad Slater, who quietly rotated off the Sussex account within 3 months of Meghan joining the agency. The Spotify door closed to the sound of Bill Simmons calling them grifters on his own program. The As Ever door closed with 220,000 jars of jam stacked in Netflix storage rooms, handed out free to any employee who wanted them. The royal family never had to do a single thing. It maintained its dignity, held its silence, carried out its duties, and allowed 6 years of self-inflicted damage to compound at the Sussexes' own hand. The Crown played no cards at all. It simply waited for the other side to run out of them. The last card has been played. Subscribe for more stories like this.